When it comes to deciding what you want to do with your life, there could be a lot of uncertainty. But there are a few things you can learn that will pay off forever, no matter what you decide to do with your life. In this video, we're gonna go over the 5 things that you can learn today that will serve you for the rest of your life. But I'll tell you a little secret. I have something for you that will help you learn these skills 10 times faster. So make sure to stick around and watch till the end of the video. Let's dive in. First and foremost is learning how to learn. Whenever you get excited about something, having the ability to use Google well and actually figure out what are resources that will teach you how to learn is key. So I'm gonna go over 2 things that I learned that completely changed my life: graphic design and how to code. For graphic design, I started by figuring out what was the software that was most useful to learn. It used to be Photoshop, then it became Sketch, and then it became Figma. When I was a kid, I searched Photoshop tutorial on YouTube, and then I just did exactly what the person did. I would watch the video, I would do it. I would watch the video, I would do it. And then I picked 2 websites and I redesigned those websites in Photoshop. Boom, that's it. And because I have dyslexia, it's always not easy for me to read the tutorials and the menu bar and the buttons. So instead, I prefer to visually see how somebody else clicks on the buttons and then do it myself. Programming was a little bit more difficult. And the thing that worked the best for me is I found a Udemy tutorial series by this guy called Rob Percival called the Complete iOS Developer Course. It was 24 hours of video and you built 19 apps. And I ended up in a folder on my desktop with mini versions of all these apps that I had built for myself. But the way I built them is I looked at somebody else doing it in a screen recording and then I would do it myself. The key meta ability I had here was knowing how to go to YouTube and just search name of thing I wanted to learn plus the word tutorial. I learned how to do it by looking at somebody else and then I experimented with doing it myself. But then now I had these skills for the rest of my life: how to do graphic design and how to code. But the important skill was how to find out how to learn them from the beginning. Skill number 2, public speaking. I came to the United States when I was 14 years old. And in the beginning, I spoke with a thick Israeli accent, so it was very difficult for me to speak. And so the first thing that I did to become a very good public speaker is I listened a lot. And when I mean listen, I mean listen. The next thing I did is I looked up speeches by historical figures who I admired: Churchill, Lincoln, Theodore Roosevelt, and I would listen to their speeches over and over and over again. And I would even rewrite their speeches, same thing as YouTube. I would look at the document and I would retype the actual speech. This allowed me to become good at coming up with good prose that are actually persuasive, fun to listen to, and short and concise. The next thing that I did is I signed up for the speech and debate team in high school, and I especially gravitated towards an event called impromptu speaking. Here's how it works. You get a pamphlet, a piece of paper with 3 words on it, and then you have 2 minutes to think about a speech, and then you have to give a 5-minute speech immediately after. And so I got really good at thinking about what I was going to say before I actually said it. And then I practiced this a lot. I took this game, impromptu speaking, and I brought it back home. And I would play this as a game with my brothers and my sisters until we all got really good at giving a complete 5-minute speech off the top of our head based on whatever word you gave us. Those are the things that I would use initially for public speaking. If you want to get to a higher level, whenever you have the opportunity to public speak, always make sure that somebody films you. Take your phone, let's say you're in class and you're about to give a presentation, give it to somebody on the audience, ask them to film you in horizontal mode, it'll take 5 minutes, and then watch it back afterwards. Number 3, personal finance. The easiest way to get into personal finance is to read a couple of books around the topic. The 2 I recommend most: Money Master the Game by Tony Robbins and I Will Teach You to Be Rich by Ramit Sethi. The most important concept in personal finance is make sure you have a good bank account. I highly recommend Ally Bank. Make sure you have a good credit card. I recommend Chase Sapphire Preferred. And if you're interested in my specific strategies for how to open a bank account quickly and how to open the best credit cards quickly, search Cliff Weitzman Medium Personal Finance and you'll find an article that I wrote with every single link and every step built out. Number 4, emotional intelligence. Arguably the most important. Here's the thing. At the end of the day, what do people want in life? You want to be happy. What you expect minus what you get equals how you end up feeling. And so what you got to make sure in life is that you set your expectations correctly, and then throughout the experience, you manage the journey. And so a lot of the journey can be managed by making sure that you have good emotional intelligence. Because often when you get into disagreements with other people, that's the thing that tanks your energy the most. But if you have good emotional intelligence, you'll see these problems coming from a mile away, and even when they do come, you know how to handle them well. So the first trick I want to teach you is how to not get triggered. So what does that even mean? People sometimes think about, oh, I got mad or I got angry or I stopped thinking, whatever. This is called being triggered. I think about this as being below the line. Typically, you want to keep yourself above the line. And here's the important part. You can notice when you go below the line. And the second you notice yourself being below the line, there is no point in you continuing a conversation with someone. And so you can look at the person that you're talking to and say, hey, I can notice myself getting triggered. Let me go take a walk, take a drink of water. I'll be back. Is that okay with you? That's such a not triggered way of approaching the problem that typically people will say yes, and then you walk off, And then you bring up the topic after you had some food. You could even text him from that moment and like shift it from dynamic communication verbally to communication via writing. I've done this so many times in my life, and if you talk to all my friends, they'll tell you, I never get angry at anybody. I don't get angry at people in Speechify. I don't get angry at my friends because I notice if I'm about to get triggered, and I'll disengage in the conversation when that happens. Number 5, reading. I attribute the majority of who I am today to the fact that I've listened to 100 books a year every year for 15 years. I was not a good reader to begin with. In fact, I was a horrible reader. I have dyslexia. And what I learned is I also have ADHD, and it turns out that the speed of the listening needs to be equal to the speed at which my brain is working, because my brain moves really fast. And when the two are equal, then I'm really engaged and really interested. It happens to be that it's just difficult for me to read with my eyes at that speed, so I use text-to-speech. How do you do that? If it's a physical book, you take a picture with your phone, it scans it for you, and then it reads. If it's browser screen, let's say your email or wikipedia.com, use a Chrome extension, you click play, and it'll read it to you. And you might be thinking, Cliff, where do you find an iPhone app like this? Where do you find a Chrome extension like this? Where do you find a website like this that will convert my PDFs? Well, it's called Speechify. If you go to speechify.com and you download it for the Chrome store or the iTunes store, you can check it out. It's changed my life. You can probably change your life as well. And with that, happy listening.